everyone? Am I good to be able to walk a little bit? Sounds like it. Can you hear me? Can you? Okay. Guess we can't see thumbs up from around the world, but I have to say, seeing that heat map was pretty impressive, wasn't it? You know, absolutely, people all the way around the world want to hear what we have to say about the generic drug program at FDA. It's fascinating to us, and I also would say it's humbling as well to know that there are people all around the world who want to hear what we have to say, what information we have to impart about how to get through the generic drug review process and to get a generic drug on the market. So that to me is just humbling to see that. And when Brenda tells me there's over 1,000 attendees, kind of takes my breath away. So I appreciate y'all being here, and I thank you for your interest. And I hope that we keep you engaged and entertained, and at the very least informed over the next 2 days. So that said, I'm going to talk about GDUFA. It's the world that the generic program lives in. So we can't talk about generic drugs without talking about GDUFA. They're enmeshed, intertwined, and inseparable. So basically, real simple, we're going to talk about the present, where we are today, how the program is doing. This is year 5 of GDUFA I implementation. And then I'm going to spend a couple minutes talking about GDUFA II. Several other people as well will be talking about GDUFA II. And I have a couple closing comments before I turn it over to our next speaker. So let's get into the present here. So as far as GDUFA goes, kind of the basic bottom line conclusion here is that the agency is meeting or exceeding all of the GDUFA goals. I put that up front and out there because there were many people when GDUFA was signed that didn't think we could do this. And not only have we done this, we've exceeded almost all of the benchmarks that are required in GDUFA I. In addition to that, we've had a tremendous amount of dialogue with industry, and we thank industry for that feedback. But in addition to what we had to do in GDUFA I, we also implemented multiple other significant program accomplishments or achievements, and those are in addition to GDUFA I. That said, we are halfway through year 5 of GDUFA I, and we still have challenges. And the main challenge is the fact that it takes multiple review cycles to get to approval. And what that does is it leads to a tremendous amount of rework in the agency by our reviewers and at industry with your staff as well. Here's, well, most of you have not been here before, so you probably haven't seen this chart, but I've used this chart for the last 5 years. The red box is year 5. It's fiscal year 2017. It's where we are right now. These are the GDUFA goals across a variety of different areas. The GDUFA goals increased progressively over the 5-year period, and we are at the basically the highest performance goals right now. Essentially, everything is, we have to hit 90% in the time frame. So for original applications, we're now talking 90% of 90% will have regulatory action within 10 months. So that's for original applications. So let's talk about originals. So that's where we are. I said year 5. Year 3 was the first year of GDUFA that there were program goals. Year 1 and year 2 had no program goals, had no performance goals, none of that, because it was the expectation the agency would need that amount of time to get it together. To build the IT program that we needed to have, we had to hire, I forget what the magic number was, 970 something FTEs under GDUFA with specific performance goals on hiring that. So the first 2 years of GDUFA was really building the infrastructure. Years 3, 4, and 5 is now cranking up the machine and making it work. So in year 3, the performance goal was that we would review and provide regulatory action on 60% of those original applications within 15 months. So a smaller percentage that has to meet a longer period of time. That 15 months went all the way through till December, just a couple months ago, okay? So looking at, oh, I'm sorry, December a year ago, my apologies. If you look at this, 97% of those applications actually got their regulatory action within 15 months. So not only did we meet this, we exceeded this, and we exceeded it by a lot. In FY16, so that's year 4, year 4 is, the performance goal is 75% of those applications, again, within 15 months. Year 4 data are just coming in right now because those ANDAs are just starting to mature as of January. So we only have about 2 months worth of data on cohort year 4 of GDUFA. As we get data, we'll report out. We're at multiple meetings, public meetings, and reporting on the progress of the program, so you'll continue to hear about this. So that's originals. Here are a summary of approvals and tentative approvals, the 3 years before GDUFA, and the first 4 years of GDUFA, and the first quarter of this fiscal year. So as I said, years 1 and years 2, which is FY13 and FY14, you see a dip in this. Not unexpected because of the incredible infrastructure that needed to be created. But as well, you can see from years 2, 3, and 4, an increase in the number of approvals and tentative approvals. And last fiscal year, with the 651 approvals and the 184 tentative approvals, that was the largest number of approvals, the largest number of tentative approvals ever in the history of the generic drug program. So ever approved. So, I think that's a good demonstration of the GDUFA program is working. Still a lot to do, but it is working. In addition, this table here just shows you a bunch of first generics. These are first generics that were approved in FY16. There's a little text here that I can't quite read that I put there, so I obviously didn't put it in the right spot. But we approved, I believe it's 70-something, 79 or so first generics in calendar year 16. If you want the exact number, I would encourage you to go to our website, and we have an annual report, and you can get the exact data. I am not a data person. I mean, I like data, but I never know the numbers perfectly. That's why I don't know anyone's phone number. Ted Sherwood, who will be talking to you later, he's the data guy. He knows everything down to probably the 6th significant digit or something like that. So I think what's important to note here is, yes, we're approving first generics. Yes, we're approving on first cycle now in GDUFA. And if you look at these drugs, you can see that they treat a variety of conditions. Things from HIV and let me see what else. HIV, there's cardiac arrhythmias, and things that we need now this time of year, treatment of seasonal allergies and such. So very serious life-threatening diseases all the way to uncomfortable lifestyle more type things. So those are the first generic approvals. Here's data about cohort year 3, because that's the one we have the totality of data on. Cohort year 3, there were 9% first cycle approvals. That might not sound a lot to you. And if you live in the new drug space, that really doesn't sound like a lot to you. But prior to GDUFA, the first cycle approval rate for an ANDA was less than 1%. Pretty much it was a 0. And so that's pretty good. It's not good enough because that means a lot still has to get reworked. The first cycle CR rate is 71%. So 71% of those ANDAs got a CR. Again, showing what I said before. A lot of cycles to approval, a lot of rework between us. So of those 523 ANDAs that were cohort year 3, 67 have come back to us. So many of them are still sitting out with industry in a CR status. But of those that came back to us, 42% were approved on second cycle. So that's good. But what's not so good is the fact that there still were over 50% that got a CR. So we're here over the next 2 days to teach you about the generic drug program. We're hoping that you take the information back and put that into your practices at your organizations, because we're telling you what needs to be done to get an approval. So if you do what we tell you, you should get an approval. And one other thing about the first cohort year 3, most recent data that I saw just yesterday, so about 20% of cohort year 3 ANDAs are now either approved or tentatively approved. This here, this shows you overall program actions the year before GDUFA, all the way through the first 4 years of GDUFA, and the last column is just first quarter of FY17. Again, demonstrating the record numbers of approvals and tentative approvals. But what I want to point out is the row below that, which is complete response. This is the largest regulatory action that we're issuing, the largest number. And last year, we issued over 1,700 CR letters. That's not surprising to me because in years 1, especially year 2 was when industry put a whole lot of ANDAs into the system before the stability guidance changed. And years 1 and years 2 did not have GDUFA goals. So it took a while to pick them up. And what you're starting to see, that is reflective of those ANDAs with no goal dates being reviewed and also showing that not so many of them are getting approved on first cycle. And in addition to this record output of complete response letters, you have to recall, remember, there's also a tremendous amount or large volume of information requests that go out from us, as well as easily correctable deficiencies, discipline review letters, and other communications with industry. So I'm not capturing all of that. I'm just capturing here official regulatory action. So, some people ask me this question, well, why so many CRs? One is this was what was required under GDUFA, put all the deficiencies into one. So we have a coordinated system of review. In addition, there are applications that have deficiencies that need to be corrected before we can approve them. And if there's deficiencies, frequently they're communicated live or in real time with easily correctable deficiencies and IRs. But as we're getting to goal dates and such, complete response letters are what we're going to be issuing to industry, and what obviously we have been issuing. And lastly, as I said, my premise here is multiple review cycles to get to approval. If it takes multiple cycles, the end of each cycle is a CR letter. Hence, the number of CRs is high. So a variety of other accomplishments that I'd like to spend a couple minutes going through. First of all, filing. Many of you are well aware of you're getting filing actions within less than 60 days. When I'm out speaking to industry, they're all pretty much giving me thumbs up. That's like, yeah, we're getting our filing decisions. The agency has published a refuse to receive RTR guidance. I believe 3 versions of this. We published it in draft, we finalized it, and we revised final in December of last year. The Division of Filing Review has implemented good review practices. They have a robust program now. This is not an arbitrary system. They have robust training and review practices for all their staff, including the need for strong documentation of their reviews and their decisions. There's intense engagement with our Office of Policy and OGD on any of the decisions. And there are a variety of internal procedures in place, not just in place, but trained upon, to ensure that we have consistency with filing determinations across similarly situated applicants and across all the applications that come in. And so I want to, a take-home point about filing is there are very few rescissions of RTRs now. You might have had a higher RTR rescission rate in the past, a couple years ago. This system is pretty rock solid right now. Very, very few RTRs are being overturned. And DFR is also heavily involved in control correspondence. You'll be hearing from filing Roseanne Chandra tomorrow. So I'm not going to get into too much about that. The regulatory science component of GDUFA is critical because what it helps to do is provide access to generics for which there are no generics yet. I think this was a landmark that GDUFA had a regulatory science program. There are about 90 active contracts and grants. The areas in the portfolio of this research program are basically targeted at those areas for which there is no generic access. So we're talking about big dollar markets, $1 billion a year markets, for example. To me, this is a huge return on investment. These 90 contracts and grants probably totaled less than $100 million. $100 million worth of research to gain access to $1 billion a year markets. So pretty substantial return on investment in my mind. This program, some of the end products of this program is the fact that we can publish guidance documents on particular products. We have internal alignment inside CDER and the agency. That's a big deal because otherwise we're wasting a lot of time once there's an application in-house. And if we're not aligned, it's important that we are sooner than later. And so this program is really driving alignment in an earlier time frame. This is providing confidence in generic substitution. We have review tools to help our staff and science-driven review tools that will lead to faster and smarter generic drug development and review. So Stephanie Choi will be here later today, and she's going to give you an update on GDUFA Regulatory Science. And another component of the regulatory science part is the fact of translating research into standards. And the agency standards typically are guidances. So this group works very collaboratively with a variety of other offices in OGD. They are publishing over 200 guidances a year. They've published 15 guidances alone in the last 2 or 3 years on inhalational products. Big deal, complex products, big market. They've also published several new general guidances. A guidance for evaluating abuse deterrence of generic opioids, a guidance on adhesion of transdermal products and patches, and also more recently in January, a guidance for drug-device combination products on comparative analyses and human factor studies. Those are all on the web. Our policy group has been very busy. I already mentioned policy and filing, but policy is a critical component to OGD. They were involved with the finalization of the MMA rule, the Medicare Modernization Act, and they have been instrumental in several of the guidances that are particularly important to provide clarity to industry on the entire J pathway. So they were involved in RTR for lack of justification of impurity limits, the general RTR guidance that I already mentioned related to filing, a guidance that explains the 180-day exclusivity, and then also a guidance that explains what the reference product can be in a generic application. Because we get lots of questions about what, can we use this as a reference product or not? So if you have those questions as you're doing generic drug development, there's guidance out there. There's guidance on our website to answer your questions. And Martha Nguyen and Mark Kimbrell will be here later today, again, to give you an update on policy. Our communications group has been exceptionally busy. Jordana O'Grady, sitting here in the room, she is our director of our communications group. I have a few people I say are the best hires I've ever hired in OGD. Getting Jordana to come to OGD is definitely one of them. So I'm pleased that Jordana's here. And she has, we've got a dialed-in comm shop in a way that I couldn't even have dreamed of. All of these things have hyperlinks here, get you to all these different reports. They're all there because of Jordana and her group. And the first thing I tasked Jordana with last year, 2 years ago, last year, was to get the OGD annual report out. And she had to have it out within 2 months, and she did. So we will be publishing an OGD annual report every year. Most recently, just went the 2016 just published recently, as did the regulatory science for GDUFA. Lots of information on our website about the program. So sorry, Jordana, now your face is as pink as your dress. Ted Sherwood's going to walk you through these a bit more. The generic drug review dashboard, sometimes we call it the CEO report. These are data rich. They're published on a quarterly basis, updated. Basically, the program changes on a day-to-day basis because the volume is so large, so lots of things moving in and out, back and forth between us and industry. But we are able to, with the IT program or the IT infrastructure that we now have under GDUFA, we have a much better understanding about where all the applications are. With us, with you, where are they? How many cycles have we had? How many IRs? All of that kind of stuff. So Ted Sherwood's going to walk you through that. And if you have questions for me at the end of my talk, since there is no panel, you can send them to Ted. Ted will answer them all. So despite the successes of GDUFA, there are still lots of challenges. This is a relatively old chart This was July 2009 through 2014. This was that on average, it takes 3 to 4 CMC cycles to get to approval. So that's concerning. It's very concerning if it takes that long to get a product to approval. This is first cycle approvals for the new drug world. This is the NDA or PDUFA world. They started out in PDUFA 1 in 1993 with an over 30% first cycle approval. They are now well over 90% first cycle approvals. And the teachable moment from the success of PDUFA is that that submission has to be right the first time. If it's not right the first time, it gets multiple review cycles. And so that's what we need to do in the generic space. We need applications coming in right the first time. And over the next 2 days, you're going to hear about how to have them right the first time. So where am I here? Sorry. Substantially all of the work is either with us or with the applicant. And again, Ted Sherwood has more data on this. He's going to walk you through a lot of the data on where the work is. We know that many ANDAs are not lawfully approvable because there's patents or exclusivity that's pending. And there are several hundred applications sitting in TA status right now. The main challenge, again, is that it takes several review cycles to get to approval, reflecting, I think, the quality of some of the submissions that we're receiving. And so while GDUFA counts regulatory action, so we have successfully nailed all the actions we need, what we really need is approval. Approval is the ultimate public health objective. That's what gets generic drugs in the hands of patients, providers, third-party payers, et cetera. And we need to help you get applications that can get to approval more quickly. And again, over the next 2 days, you're going to be hearing a lot of information on how to do that and how to have submission right the first time. As far as these older applications go, the good news is they've been through multiple review cycles. So we're anticipating them being closer to the goal of approval or tentative approval. So when GDUFA started, October 1 of 2012, the 2,866 was the number that was the backlog. That was the GDUFA backlog. Since that time, obviously, there's been applications that have come in and a record number of applications that came in year 2. But right now, there's about 2,300 applications that are actively with the agency under review within goal, either with a GDUFA goal date or with a target action date. When GDUFA started in October of 2012, there were around 100 applications with industry. And what we have seen since GDUFA started is that the number of applications that are with industry has progressively increased. And right now, there's about 1,800 applications with industry. That means we have issued a CR or a tentative approval. And we don't know when these are coming back, and we don't know if they're coming back. But it does give me considerable angst and sleepless nights, because if all these come back on the same day, that's not feasible. It's not funny either. I mean, you might think it's funny because you'll just get them off of your desk, but it won't be funny to us because we have to respond to Congress on how we're doing in this program. I'm well aware that a large number of these are sitting with industry because you have problems with your facilities, and the facilities are contract manufacturers. So we ask you to please work with them to get your facilities into an acceptable state so you can submit back an amendment that addresses all of the issues in the CR. This is concerning. And the most common deficiencies that we see in these CRs are inadequate facilities and inadequate CMC. So let me talk quickly about GDUFA II, okay? So GDUFA II, we already have a commitment letter. The commitment letter is on FDA's website, or a goals letter for GDUFA II. These 4 organizations are the 4 trade organizations for which the agency negotiated. The Generic Pharmaceutical Association is no longer called that. They're now called the Association for Affordable Medicines, AAM, but at the time of negotiations, they were GPHA. So while we have an agreement We do not have the legislation for GDUFA II yet. That needs to be reauthorized by Congress, and it needs to be reauthorized by October 1, otherwise it expires. So everything we built expires. We need timely reauthorization, and I even provide the link here for you to go look at the goals or the commitment letter. When GDUFA I happened, we shamed people in public and asked who read the commitment letter. And at a meeting of 1,000 individuals one time, there was a sparse smattering of arms raised. So this is what we need to implement starting October 1. We encourage you, I implore you to read it, because that's what we have to do. There are multiple, I call these buckets, multiple buckets under GDUFA II here. I'm not going to go through all of these, and some of these will be addressed by other speakers. Potentially, in GDUFA II, there's the opportunity for priority review. Priority review would be an 8-month review. The goals letter lays out the most important part of this is that the applicant must submit a pre-submission facility, or PFC. You'll be hearing more about that, I believe, over the next 2 days. But this PFC has to be submitted at least 2 months in advance. And you might go, well, why 8 months? GDUFA has 6 months. Why can't you do 6 months? So the negotiations landed on 8 months. And FDA has to plan and conduct facility inspections for the ANDA program. Many of them are overseas, very different from the PDUFA world. Many of the applications have many facilities that need to be inspected, different from the PDUFA world. And many of the facilities have deficiencies that need to be corrected before we can approve it. And so trying to do this in a 6-month time period, the amount of applications that would end up being CR'd would just go through the roof. It would be highly unlikely that you'd get a first cycle approval. And so the need or the ability to be able to communicate the deficiencies and resolve those deficiencies that's how us and the other trade organizations landed on the 8-month time frame. So I mentioned this already. Standard, same thing that we have right now, 10-month. Priority, 8 months. But the PFC is the linchpin for having a priority submission. The facilities package has to be submitted more than 2 months before the application, and it has to be complete with all the facilities, has to be accurate, and it has to remain unchanged. So you will be hearing, I believe you'll be hearing much more about PFC. The other part of GDUFA II is kind of this no application left behind. Because we know in GDUFA 1, there's years 1 and years 2. They don't have GDUFA goal dates. They have TADs. We know that's been a pain point for industry. Everything in GDUFA 2 has a GDUFA goal date. So as of October 1, TADs go away. No more TADs. We created TADs. We created TADs to give industry the clarity that they needed on those applications that didn't have goal dates. We created goal dates and called them target action dates. There's a pre-ANDA program in GDUFA II. To hopefully have applications come in right the first time. So we have the opportunity to increase on the first cycle or decrease the number of review cycles. The pre-ANDA program is pretty immense. Again, I would encourage you to go to the goals letter and read it. It is for complex products, and complex products are defined in the goals letter. The pre-ANDA program also includes a variety of meetings, again, for complex products, but meetings that don't exist in the traditional ANDA space. And there are also a variety of other enhancements related to pre-ANDA, from controlled correspondence, regulatory science, and inactive ingredients and such. But since this is a small business meeting, I got to talk about something related to small business. So GDUFA II has small business considerations that GDUFA I did not have. So there's some fee relief for small businesses. A couple things to walk you through here is in GDUFA II, no facility or no ANDA sponsor gets charged an annual fee until an ANDA in which it's listed is approved. That's different than GDUFA I, where you kind of had to pay up front. In addition, there's 3 tiers, small, medium, and large, based upon the size of, based upon the firm and the number of its affiliates. Based upon the number of approved ANDAs with that firm. And then also contract manufacturing organizations have small business relief because they will pay 1/3 of the annual facility fee paid by manufacturers that produce their own ANDAs. So I just want to close with, FDA is absolutely delivering on GDUFA. We've met all of our obligations. We have met or exceeded all of the GDUFA goal dates. We have gone above and beyond the negotiated commitments. That said, we recognize there's still a lot to do. I have this that says we are building a robust, modern program. I think we built it. The program is built. We are fine-tuning it and tweaking it to make it even better. But this program is sustainable now. It's very predictable. You are getting clear and consistent communication from us. It may not be the communication you want to hear, but it's clear and consistent. And we are not arbitrary and capricious. You are seeing fairness across applications and applicants. In addition, we are ramping up for GDUFA II. So there's lots of work going on behind the scenes right now so that we hit the ground running October 1 when GDUFA II starts. So one final comment that I have is I just want to thank industry. We thank you for working with us on GDUFA I. We know this has been challenging, but your engagement, your feedback to us has been instrumental in improving the program and making the program the success that it is. So we appreciate your patience and your resilience, and we also look forward to working with you in GDUFA II. So there we go. That's the end of my presentation.